Hey, what's up, everybody? Good to be here again, Don Oski. And on today's episode, I want to bring you something that was a really fun project for me. A very dear uncle of mine that, well, I've known him since I was a little kid. He came to me, he goes, Oski, I've always loved your art. I want you to do something. I have this helmet. So that's where everything started. I was, boom, intrigued, interested, because of course, I haven't done a helmet in a long time. I have done before airbrushing and painting on vehicles and motorcycles. So that was a lot of fun. The only thing was, in this one, I decided to do things totally different. So what ended up happening was, I wanted to give this a really cool effect. Something that I had never seen done in a helmet before. And my uncle really gave me carte blanche. He said, listen, do whatever you want to do. So I was really excited. I was like, this is something that I can just do. So this helmet is a helmet that he's actually worn during his amateur races. I just think they do it for time. I'm not really quite sure, but he has a Mustang. Since I was a kid, he's had a Mustang that was, I think, 65 hatchback or fastback. Sorry if I got that wrong. So he's had this Mustang, and man, this thing has always been a beauty for me. You know, I love classic cars. Nowadays, I don't feel like really owning a classic car because a lot of them have a lot of issues and you're just constantly maintaining it. Unless I have like the extra money to throw. Hey, you know which one I would get? A Corvette Stingray. 65? No. 75. 75 it is. Yes. Beauty of a car. And you've actually seen that one in Rush Hour. That was the first car he had, Chris Tucker. I love that car since I saw it. And actually, before it came out in the movies, a lieutenant in my company, when I was in the Marine Corps, he actually had one, which was a T-top, silver. I fell in love with that car when I saw it, let me tell you. So anyway, back to the story. My uncle has raced with this helmet quite a few times, and he's done it in the pro amateur circuit, I think. I'm probably getting that wrong. In this episode, what I did, I wanted to commemorate those races. So I actually looked for some cool pictures and just got together all these compositions of ideas. I wanted it to be a little bit retro with a little bit more modern. I also was thinking about this is going to be a display piece, so it's really only going to be showing a certain side of it from what he was telling me he's going to put it in his office. So more of the detail and stuff had to be more on one side, you know, like the really eye-catching stuff, and then you can take it down and you actually see and appreciate the whole thing, and you're like, oh, okay. So it actually has a whole flow to it. That's something that I think is really important when you're going to be doing a helmet, body work, any type of work where there's curves. You know, it's not a flat piece like a canvas. Anything where there's curves, you want to go along with the curves. I think that's so very important. So in this episode, I wanted it to have a really nice flow to it, give it a sense of speed, even though it was just sitting still right there as a display piece. And I think I actually was able to achieve that. So I'm pretty happy about that. But anyway, let me not get too much into all this backstory. Let me tell you some of the cool details about this. In this episode, I did something I have never seen done before. I wanted to give it a hand-painted look. And I was experimenting at the time with oil paints for my first time. And oil paints are actually really fun. I love the texture of them. The intensity of the saturation of the colors, it just gives it a certain depth. And that depth is something that is just like, wow. You know, like oh, my lights. I gotta check that wire. I don't want to burn in here. I was doing this experimenting with oil paints, and I was really loving it, and that just gave me the inspiration. I want to do something like that looks hand painted, and you're not going to be able to do that with an airbrush. Besides, I really just got over airbrushes, and I got rid of my compressor. I got rid of my airbrushes. Like, I got rid of everything that had to do with airbrush, because one thing I cannot stand is the clogging of the airbrush gun. There's absolutely nothing that you can do about it. It's gonna happen. And honestly, I was never able to get. You have to be a chemist. You do. And I did this for years, so it's not that I gave up easily. You just have to be, because it's like and what you do in a mix for one color doesn't matter what you do in a mix for another color. It really has to do with the color itself, how many particles of paint or tint or whatever it is inside of it, as opposed to, because see, like a blue will dry faster than a red. And sometimes your blacks are really watery, but then sometimes they're extra thick. And it could be the same brand, and I just kept running into this. And honestly, it's more of a headache for me than anything. I just don't have the patience for it. I want to see colors and just things pop as quickly as possible. So I did this oil painting on a helmet. I've never actually seen this done before, so if anybody has done this before, or if you've seen this done before, please comment below, because I've never seen anybody do an oil painting on a helmet. And well, this could have been a motorcycle helmet, but he used it for racing his drift car, racing his Mustang. And so I wanted to commemorate that, but I wanted to give it a really nice look, something classy. He's a lawyer, something that he can display with pride. What I'll tell you is I will be showing the process, and part of it is you have to prep your surface. Just like anything else, if you're gonna be painting with oil or you're gonna be painting anything else, especially with a helmet. One thing I want to tell you is I really have to check that light. You don't know what it's been on. You don't know if it's had oil spilled on it, brake fluid, any of that stuff. So you really want to sand this down and prep your material. Now, I was only going to be painting one main side. The other one I was going to be leaving the base color, which was black. So I prepped mainly one side where the main artwork was going to go. And after prepping it, putting a primer on it, sanding it down, wiping it. It's so important to wipe. Alcohol, degreaser, wipe all that stuff down. That's when I started my painting process. And I just went into it like an oil painting, honestly. It wasn't that big of a deal. I was a little bit scared because of the sealing process. But then I thought, you know what? When you go to seal something that's like an oil painting, you use oil-based paints or linseed oil, but it's still an oil. So I thought, okay, what if I seal it with, so I did look for an aerosol, and I found this in Michael's, I believe, and it was to seal oil. It was an oil-based polyurethane, I believe. So I used that to seal it. I probably will pop it up in the video, but enough talking. Let's get down to it. Clap on. No, it didn't work. So anyway, enough talking. Let's get into it. I hope you like this episode, and stay tuned till all the way to the end. Donoski back here again, and welcome. I'm actually going to be going over the process of what I'm doing. I did not do the primering on video, unfortunately, but it was pretty basic, just like any other material that you're going to prep. You primer it, sand it, clean it beforehand. Maybe I should make a video of that. But right now, what I'm doing is laying down the base coat. Red in the bottom of the Mustang and blue in the top. This is to actually reflect the warmth of the ground and the coolness of the sky. This is your base underlay. Just as in the Mustang the horse emblem, you do the same to signify the chrome. As you see here, I'm doing the underlay of the green grass that's just sweeping away. Not a lot of details here, but I'm leaving the flames out, which are going to be painted later on. I do not want them to be tarnished by an underlayment color. Here we're actually starting to put the black, very translucent, mixing with some greens, just to catch that reflection. This is the same as any other painting process. You do it in layers. A lot of times our eyes tricks us and we see something as fully black, but we don't count in the reflections, and this is what actually gives it depth and dimension. The really dark parts or really solid blacks are the undertones where no light hits. As you see here, I'm actually leaving out the 65, which is my uncle's racing number. This is actually a picture, as you see on my left hand, of his real race car. I believe he has 2 cars, but this is the one that he uses the most right now. Now it's just going over details inside the rims. giving it the effect, the sustenance of a real Mustang going down the turn. And as you see here, I'm adding some blues. These blues are really dark because they actually reflect the sky, but they're on black paint. This is the fun part, the taping part, where you mask everything off. It is so crucial and so important to protect the materials and to protect the areas that I don't want to get painted. Right here, I'm doing a stripe down the middle, which is actually going to be spray painted in. Same as you would do with an automotive application. This is fine line tape. I actually love playing with this type of tape. It is beautiful. It goes on smooth. And if you have any bubbles, you can just cut a little incision and push it down. This is actually not paper tape. This is, I believe, latex or plastic. Probably plastic, not latex. And here we are primering. Well, actually, we already did the primer of the flames, and I'm just using a heat gun to dry it quicker. First coat is a red base coat. Let this dry for some time. Actually dried it with a heat gun as well. And now I'm testing my colors. This is a fluorescent orange. So I applied a base coat of red and actually used fluorescent colors. I have fluorescent yellow, orange, and pink. I wanted this thing to pop and really have that automotive classic look tied into the hand painted. Here I am. I actually had a voiceover. I was all talking during this video, but it didn't sound quite right, so I'm just talking over it this time. And here it's going on beautifully. I know you can't really tell in this video, but the transitions are amazing. You'll see them later on in the finished product. And here I am spraying on some orange, fluorescent orange. You can actually see the mist. It's actually very fluorescent. And yes, very important, test your colors before committing. Spray it somewhere where it won't be noticeable, or like I did on the piece of paper, just to see the contrast of the actual colors with what I was doing. So I sprayed some fluorescent orange going from the center of the helmet up. That's going to be the stripe going down the middle, dividing the checkered flag and the photographic image. And just finishing it off with some fluorescent pink at the ends to give it that really fiery burning look. And all this before heading on over to take off all this tape and paper, which is actually fun as well. Here I am. Once again, let's just talk right over this. What I am saying is, please be careful when you're taking off this tape. Sometimes it can lift the paint that you just sprayed. So usually I would like to do this before it fully dries, because when it fully dries, it has a tendency of lifting, as opposed to when it's still wet and malleable, it actually just comes right off easier and leaves you cleaner edges. Now to get the really finished look, I'm doing some pinstriping going around it. Now I am cheating because I did not bust out my pinstriping brushes, but since this is a one-off, I just grabbed my trusty oil paints. Well, actually they're oil paint pens, and I started doing all the pinstriping by hand. Now I've developed my hand coordination over the years. I actually have done pinstriping designs by brush, but for the sake of time and energy, I just use some pens in this project. It's all gonna get sealed. As you see here, I'm using a broad pen, which I usually have a tendency of using thin brushes and thin lines, but from a distance you can't really see those. So I have to force myself a lot of times to use broader, bolder lines. And here I am going back with a fine line marker, which actually helps me do the really crisp edges. and finishing everything off. For the final result. Here we are. Thank you for staying to the end of the video. This was an epic monumental project. I did it for my uncle. His helmet came out beautifully. I actually did 3 coats of clear on it, and I didn't cover this during the video, but I want to give you a little bit of tips and hints on what to do when you're clear coating. I use an oil-based clear with a glossy finish, which really allowed all the details to pop and stand out on this helmet. And I actually sprayed 3 coats, and I follow the recommended directions on it. If you have not sprayed clear before, please practice on something you don't mind ruining, because the worst thing that can happen is that you get drips. And if you don't know how to fix those drips, it's even worse. But I do have experience doing this, so everything turned out beautifully. There's actually no sanding or polishing of the helmet afterwards. This was just a one-off clear, and it came out beautiful. My uncle loved it. And if you haven't done so yet, please check out my website, www.donoski.com, and my Instagram is spelled the same way, Donoski, Donoski. Check out my website where I have my original paintings like these, and you can also get prints. But not only that, I'm also designing my own apparel, which I absolutely love. I love putting a positive vibe, affirmations out there for everybody. So that's going to be part of what goes on my shirt. Follow me, like this video, and help me out, because I am going to be posting some more videos. Thanks for watching.